Welcome to Gettalife, everyone. We decided to provide this DVD to allow you to get a life a little easier. Relax, we'll have you well on your way to getting a life in no time. Open the box and you'll find a grid sheet that looks like this, the rules and 2 packs of cards. To help you understand Get a Life, we've broken the game down into 8 steps. Follow each of these steps closely. Don't forget to use the written rules to reinforce your learning. First, we'll show you how to set up the cards by playing a game. The idea is to build a grid in front of you, like the picture on the back of the rules. Once you have an understanding of that, we'll introduce the second deck, and then show you how the game ends, and how to score. Then we can work out who's got a life. Step 1. Card setup. We've prepared a 4-player game. Choose a dealer and make sure they shuffle the cards well. The dealer starts the game by dealing 5 cards to everyone and 12 cards into a kitty, putting them to one side. The dealer then places the remainder of the deck in the centre of the table. You start to play the game like many other card games, with the player to the left of the dealer picking up a card and then playing one onto their grid, their opponent's grid, or into the trash. The discard into the trash is placed face up next to the deck. Picking up a card and then playing a card is how a turn is completed. Although there is a situation when more than one card can be played, but we'll get to that shortly. Step 2. Learn to build a basic grid. The object of the game is, of course, to get a life. And you do that by getting as many life goals as possible, as these are worth points. The idea is to build a life goal grid in front of you. Have a look at the picture of the life goal grid and the rules. The object of the game is to build that grid. The first deck contains all the cards you can see in the Get a Life grid in varying amounts. There are 4 knighthoods, 4 legends, 4 hard knocks in each column or suit, 8 silver spoons, 4 damage cards, 4 each of the blue rimmed cards, 3 orange, 2 silver and 1 gold. As you will see later, it is harder to build your grid upwards, but that's the challenge. Let's look at the grid sheet. Remember, the idea of the game is to build that grid. The person with the best grid at the end of the game, the most number of points, wins. Let's have a closer look at the grid. You can see at the centre there is a 4x4 grid. You're trying to build that grid by starting at the bottom with blue rimmed cards and building to gold at the top. You can see the value of the life goals at the side of the grid. These are the life goals that you need to score points and to win the game. How do we build the grid? We do this by starting at the bottom and working our way up. You can see the points at the side of the grid, 5,000, 10,000 and so on to the top. You start your grid by placing blue rimmed cards down in front of you. If you don't have a blue rimmed card at the start of the game, you will have to discard something else. Throw out a silver spoon, say. It's not worth any points. Throw it face up into the trash next to the deck. When you have a blue rimmed card, this is how the grid is built. Now we are building the grid quickly. Of course, each of these cards would represent a separate turn. To build to the next level, you need the card underneath. See how you build from the bottom. But notice, once you've built to the next level, you can play any card on that level. However, you can't build up unless you've got all the cards underneath. See how the player has built to the silver level? Unfortunately, he doesn't have all the cards underneath to allow him to get to that level. Therefore, he cannot play this card. The silver card is played correctly in this instance, as the player has all the cards underneath. He's now able to play any silver card. Therefore, the silver experience can now be played. There is an instance where you can play more than one card at a time during your turn. If you have a blue and orange card in the same suit, for example, a blue and orange relationship card, you may play both of these cards in one turn as they are of the same Get a Life suit. Similarly, as part of this rule, you can play 2 blue cards on top of one another at the same time, as many of the same suit as you can. as long as they are in the same suit of life. You can play the blue and orange card, but you can't play the gold card unless you've built up elsewhere. The normal grid building rules apply. That is, if you had built to gold elsewhere, then yes, you could do this. Yes, you can play the blue, orange and silver card, as that is the normal grid building rules. The result of this means you can end up with less than 5 cards in your hand. Pick up to 5 cards in your next turn. If you have only 3 cards in your hand, pick up 2. 4 cards, pick up 1. This is a very handy way of picking up more than 1 card and helping you get a life. Please note, if you forget to pick up on your turn, tough luck. You'll have to wait till your turn comes around again. Step 3, the remaining cards. Hard knocks and silver spoons. There are 4 hard knocks which you play on an opponent's life goal grid to slow them down. The hard knocks are played onto an opponent's grid. These stop grid development. Your opponent can no longer build in that suit. That is, in this case, the player can no longer play any experience cards or do any development of the experience suit. They need to play the silver spoon of the appropriate suit to get out of that dilemma. If they don't have a silver spoon when it's their turn, instead of picking up from the deck, they can rummage through the trash pile and pick up a silver spoon that way, if one's been discarded. If they do this, they can be told to get a life by their opponents. Introducing Legend. If you manage to play all 4 blue cards representing all the suits of life, you're a bit of a legend, really. If you've done this, you can play a legend card onto your own grid and score 20,000 points and upwards, depending on the layer you're putting the legend on. This player has 4 orange cards. They can play the legend card, which is worth 30,000 points. If the player has a hard knock on his grid, he cannot play the legend. He must get rid of the hard knock first by playing a silver spoon. Introducing Knighthood. If you manage to build your grid all the way to the top, you've achieved excellence in your suit and deserve to be knighted. Now you can't knight yourself. Someone else must knight you. They may do this if they have a knighthood card, and they will because they get points as well. They receive a knighthood ninja card worth 25,000 points, so there is an incentive to knight someone. Remember, you cannot play a knighthood card if there is a hard knock card on the suit you want to knight. This player has built to the top of his grid. Your opponents can now knight him. Remember, he can't knight himself. The player receives 20,000 points for the knighthood. The giver of the knighthood receives a knighthood ninja worth 25,000 points to be held near his grid until the end of the game. The last card in the first deck is the damage card. The damage card is a card that is played onto your opponent's grid on the silver level. This is specific to a suit, that is, wealth or knowledge. It doesn't take away the card, but it does devalue it. The silver row is worth 15,000 points. If you play a damage card on someone, its value is reduced to nothing, but it's still part of the grid. They can still build to gold with the card. It's just as that card is not worth anything. You now have all the rules to play with the first deck. You're now ready to play the first round, so have a go. If you get confused, replay that section of the DVD or have a look in the rules.